now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
You know, the quantum.
Is that Tom?
This Jeannie, she just came on,
Mm-hmm.
and Tom's parking.
Tom's in the parking lot. You have fun seeing people in person yesterday?
I actually was not in the building. We had an agreement that I actually wrote, I was a co-author of the resolution that passed in the Senate, which I wrote on Friday and Sunday with Jen. But the agreement was, unless it was pivotal that you be in the building, stay out, be that many persons and that many fewer adjutant tests that had to be used.
Yep.
So I think other than Jen and Tucker and maybe though I'm not even sure Michael Gray. It was basically Tucker and Jen's. And Jen, and it was once the resolution went up to the Senate, there really wasn't anything for us to do. Hi, Tom. Hello. How are you? Decided to come and visit you all in person today. Pardon? Decided to come and visit you all in person today.
You're honored.
Well, it partially was that my computer monitor failed. And that wasn't going, so IT is working on it, so this, I said, okay, I want to come across and watch in person, and now everybody's online. You want to close the door, Chris? Or-
Yeah.
Michael, we're all desperate for human interaction right now.
Here, that's.
Yeah, that's why part of the reason I also came in. I thought I'd see a few more of you. Good, everybody. That's great. And you're working-
It's 2:01 by my clock, and I think we should probably get started. We have, I think, all of the board members are present and accounted for. And I'll convene the meeting, and we are recording. Let's see here. I sent around, we have an agenda, the sort of the standard agenda we've been operating under for the last couple of weeks. And I also sent around a little while ago some additional thoughts about how to use our time, how to best use our time in the, at least for the next hour or so. And I'd like to defer action on the minutes for the time being, if there's no objection to doing that. I haven't had a chance to take a look at them myself. Eric, can you tell us whether we have any members of the public who are present and who might wish to address us under public comment agenda item?
It does not appear that you have any members present.
Okay. Thank you. So I guess where I'd like us to start our work this afternoon is to take up the single member district map proposal that we worked our way, the most recent version of which we worked our way through yesterday morning, and see if there are any additional follow-up questions about it, or any comments that Rob or Jeremy would like to make upon reflection about that. Any takers on that? Rob or Jeremy, do you have anything you wanted to add on reflection?
I think we covered it all yesterday.
Anyone else like to comment on that? Not. Go back to that screen. Rob, did you want to say anything by way of introduction or background about the district by district document you posted around 10:30 this morning?
It's really just the print version of what we did orally yesterday. If you go through it, you can see it's got the numbers, the towns and the districts. That indicates whether a town is split or not. And it also chronicles all of the BCA comments that we got along with the district. And I still have some cleaning up to do, and it's still a couple more of these to add, but it also has a sort of a Rob and Jeremy explanation of how we listened to what the BCAs had to say to account for any changes between the original proposal and what's being offered now.
Got it. The one thing I noticed, only because that's the first, I just read the first few pages, Rob, is that there's a statement that it says Stanford voiced no objection to the map as proposed, which didn't ring true with me. And I went back and reread what they filed. So you may want to double check on that.
Okay.
But I haven't had a chance to go all the way through it, but thanks for doing that. The written part of this, which is a necessary piece of the overall work that we're engaged in. Jean, would you be prepared now to review the highlights, or however you want to frame it, of the house map proposal that you posted, I think, on Friday?
Sure, I can go through just kind of a tour of the map. I'll try to be as concise as I can and focus on the, well, I can answer questions about any of it, but I'll focus on the changes I've made since I originally produced this district plan. I can share either the PDF, which is not 100% clear, but may be sufficient for our purposes, or I can take me a few minutes. I could bring up the Maptitude file directly. But if there are no objections, I could start with the PDF and then see if more detail is needed. Does that sound good?
Let's give that a whirl. Sure.
I've just made you the host, Jeannie.
Thank you. We got it down to an oiled machine now. Is it visible?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So this portion I actually have shared before, so we don't have to stay here very long. That is, I think it was just last week that when we were just starting to think about how we were going to make use of the comments we received from towns and the feedback we received from the BCAs, that I shared this portion of the map, and I have not changed it since then, but I'll just mention. So if it's visible to you, there are 6 labels here that are all in a little bit bigger than the others and kind of in a turquoise font. Those are the ones that are different than what my original plan, the districts that I had in my original plan. And so we've kind of been, the board has been through this ground before. I'll just summarize and say that I took a holistic view of, and I think based on the discussion on Rob and Jeremy's map, it requires kind of a holistic view for this part of Bennington, all but the most northern part of Bennington County, and then into the overlap into Windham County, because adjustments very quickly start to affect everything else in the region, which is true in other parts of the state, but particularly true here. At the bottom, just to go through this again, I did try some configurations that addressed Stamford's concern. My original map had Stamford and Pownell as a single member district, just the 2 towns together. And there is very little connection or travel. That is, it's difficult to travel between them. And they were quite a bit adamant that they wanted a connection to Reedsboro and maybe even further to the east. And I did consider some other possibilities, but was never able to make it all work with the whole region. But I did feel that this district, that's Pownell, most of Pownell, Stamford and Reedsboro, at least meant that Stamford and Reedsboro would be together, which I felt was one of the strong messages I took. And then sort of in a similar way, Woodford also, I think, expressed a desire to be connected to towns to its east. Again, I think they had a quite large recommendation that was many towns, but I tried to balance what was possible to do in this corner, at least from the scheme that I had developed, by at least making sure they were connected to Searsburg, which I did, to the east. And then this, again, taken as a whole, thinking of all the way, these 6 towns that including Bennington, and then further up north in Bennington County, it doesn't make everybody happy. I think we heard that yesterday a little bit from Rob and Jeremy, but it does, I think, that is, it doesn't make everybody 100% happy, but I think it does meet many of the needs that we heard. It keeps certain towns together, even if they're not all in a single member district, or they're not with all the towns they wanted to be with. And it only has this one division of Pownell that's new, in addition to the divisions that had already been in our existing maps in Bennington and Sunderland. Question?
I think, Jean, just why don't you keep going along? If anyone wants to ask a question, just please unmute and go right ahead.
I do have one. Do we have the opportunity in some of these cases to tell maybe a couple of towns that have to create a couple of 2 or 3 districts? I'm looking at Bennington and Pownell. Here's what you have. You have probably 4 districts, 4 seats. Tell us how you would like the boundaries to be drawn. I know we're short on time, but is there a way to say that or deliver a report that, for example, says Bennington and Pownell, X number of seats, boundaries to be determined by joint boards of civil authority?
Well, there's a couple of, I can think of a few ways, Tom, that can happen either officially or unofficially. There is a provision in the law that I don't know that has ever been used, that involves, and if Michael Chernick might be able to correct me if I get this wrong, but I think this is a process that the General Assembly can use to combine towns into a two-member district, where the towns, after that enactment, can meet and come back to the legislature in a subsequent session and propose a subdivision of one sort or another, that in a sense happens after the redistricting law has already gone into effect. I'm not sure that's ever been used.
Mr. Chair, for the record, Michael Chernick from Legislative Council, giving purely explanatory information that the General Assembly will pass an initial bill, an initial House bill, probably this year earlier than later, given the earlier primaries. And that will go out to the towns, and that initial House bill may have House districts with 2, 3 more members. For example, Burlington in the initial bill in prior years, as former Representative Koch will remember, just said Burlington is X numbers, come back to us with subdivisions and districts. And so that's entirely possible that can happen. Yes, that's the initial bill that will need to pass sometime, I gather now, and probably by late February, given the reality of the calendar.
Thank you, Michael. I had in fact forgotten that. But it seems to me then that we could render a report that asks or suggests the same process.
Well, I think we've done that in the past, and in other words, suggesting that what the apportionment board has done is one way to accomplish a subdivided districts that, while they meet the substantial equality of population requirement, may not be ideal in respect of some other factors, and in a sense inviting the boards of civil authority in the affected towns to consider meeting jointly and proposing something different. That's actually part of the process that we've just completed, that towns, I don't think we saw that as much as we have in the past, but multiple towns meeting to see if they could work something out together as opposed to on their own.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'll just then moving to the two districts that kind of in the south central here, Wyndham, what are labeled Wyndham Bennington ADJ adjusted and Wyndham Windsor adjusted. These included towns which Stratton, Winhall, Londonderry, Weston, Dover possibly as well, who there was a lot of overlapping interest in being in a district with some, but not all of the other towns. And so it would not have been possible to make all of them simultaneously happy. I just by looking at the different requests, felt that Stratton and Winhall seemed quite interested in being together. So that became an anchor for me to make sure they ended up together, which they do in this configuration. And also Weston, I believe, wanted to be with Londonderry. And vice versa. So they ended up together. And that was my attempt to do the best I could in this area. All right. If there are no other questions about this part of the state, I'm going to close this and open another screen, another file.
Can you, did you make that line on the west side of Marlborough to boost the deviation in Whitingham,
Oh, yes, yes. So
Wilmington, Halifax?
no, actually, it was the opposite. It was to decrease the deviation in the Townsend, Newfane, Marlborough district, which is that is our. I mean, that could be. We could return that. It's not very many. I think it's about 100 people, or maybe 150, and that district had over 8%, and I was trying to keep things under 8%. But that we're now at the point where. That's a type of priority that could be, if the priority is not to divide Marlborough, then we could probably live with an 8.5%, but I left it this way for now. Does that answer?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. All right. So let me go on to the middle of the state. Is it visible?
It is.
Okay, so same scheme as before. The bigger labels with the all turquoise text are the only ones that I changed since developing this map originally. I will add, I didn't say it when we were looking at the southern part of the state, but there were many cases where there were districts there that were what the town said they wanted. So for example, the Rockingham district, which we talked about last week, that's a 2-member district, and Rockingham was not divided, which they very strongly did not want to be. And there were other examples there. Springfield was another. And I didn't go through all the details, but I'm happy to highlight cases like that as we go along. In this case, I had originally, I think we had the same districts, that is over the Castleton, Benson, West Haven, Fairhaven district. That region was the same, but you guys had Castleton broken out and they liked that. So that's what I did. I broke out Castleton. It created a bit of a high, maybe my highest deviation, one of the higher ones in the state, high negative in the remaining Benson, West Haven, Fairhaven, but it seemed acceptable, and Castleton liked being its own district, so I did that over there. This other one is a little more interesting, and I'm not 100% satisfied, but I think it's better than what it was before, and that's the separation of the current Orange 1 district into 2 other districts, or to breaking up that district. Like Rob and Jeremy, I had originally a 2 1-member districts that were slightly differently done, but had some things in common. One of the districts was Chelsea, Berkshire, Corinth, and part of Washington. And then the other district was a little different, but was Williamstown and the remainder of Washington. And then my district had Orange in there as well. And I also, but that just was kind of too big. So I took out a part of Williamstown. I gave it to Barrytown, which I remember Tom Koch was not happy about. So, and then we heard,
that doesn't improve it.
I suspected you would say that, but I'm going to keep going. And that is, this one has the benefit that it responds directly to the request that Washington not be divided, which I wanted to try to adhere to if I could. And the only way I could think of doing that was to balance some of the desires in this region. When you read Corinth's feedback, I think it was Corinth, they were very sensitive and careful. They definitely liked being in a one member, and that appealed to them a lot. But I think they recognized that there was maybe something to consider when it's at the expense of another town that would have to be divided. And I actually found that to be a very interesting message. I appreciated that they were thinking of that it was a balance. It wasn't just about them. So I'm not necessarily saying this is, what's nice about being able to consider different options is that these are not having any ripple effects on anything else. It's just, except to the extent that it gets added to Barrytown, but it doesn't need other shifting towns coming in and out of other districts. So other changes could be made here without any other ripple effects.
So that, just to state that, that's back to a 2-member district.
The district, yes, that was Orange 1 now is also a 2-member district, but it does have one fewer town in it, which is a slight improvement. And the Barrytown district continues to be a 2-member district with the addition of Orange.
Okay. Okay.
There's no division of anything going on. There's addition, but no division. There's subtraction too. Okay, any other questions about this?
Remind us the Moncton split.
Sure. Yeah, I actually was gonna make a couple comments about Addison County. So I was interested in listening to some of the, learning about some of the changes in the tentative proposal. My map does actually have Chittenden with Pittsford, which I believe is now the case in that plan, as well as Brandon as its own district. Moving up a little bit here into Addison. I'll get to Moncton in a second, Tom. I also have a very similar district in the south. That's the Addison Rutland district. It's similar to what is the existing district. I believe the tentative proposal, unless it's changed in a way that I'm unaware of, includes Bridport and not all of Hubbardton, whereas mine doesn't include Bridport and does include all of Hubbardton. And that was another thing they didn't want to be split. And so I was happy to be able to do that. Orwell was disappointed to be no longer with Benson, but and I did think of ways to change that, but never came up with anything I was satisfied with. And then further.
And you've got, this proposes Orwell in with Sudbury, Hubbardton, and Whiting.
Yeah, it's Shoreham, Orwell, Whiting, Sudbury, and Hubbardton. The current district is Shoreham, Orwell, Whiting, and Benson.
Benson, okay.
And Sudbury and Hubbardton are a nice pair because they have the Lake Hortonia, and they have other things that, and down Route 30, they are connected in a way that's, I think, reasonable. And Sudbury also did request this particular configuration directly. Further up into Addison, I also have a district that is quite similar to the current one. This is the one with Cornwall in it. It says New Addison 2. That one is only different because the current district, I believe, has Hancock in it. I'd have to double check, but which was always a challenge because it's over the mountain. And so that's the only change, is that it's no longer, Hancock is now moved with other towns that are also over the mountain. Middlebury is its own district. They are very happy about that. The biggest challenge was the northern part of Addison County. Two districts, the current Addison 3 and Addison 5, have, impermissibly large negative deviations. I tried to avoid, as much as I could, division of anything to solve that problem, but the best I could come up with was the one division of Moncton, which is currently part of Addison 4, the whole town, and this would move part of the town, a little less than half, that's adjacent to Ferrisburgh, into that district, and then to reduce the Addison 5 deviation, I moved Waltham in with that, with the towns in Addison that are currently in Addison 5. I guess while I'm at it, I can mention I did not divide up the Washington 7 district, which is Duxbury, Moortown, Fayston, Waitsfield, and Warren. That's one that they liked that district. Fayston did not want to be divided. It doesn't affect any other towns around it. I left that the way it was. Same with Northfield, Berlin. And a few other towns in here, but unless there are questions, we can. Well, I guess I'll mention also over here, back on the eastern side, the Windsor Orange 2 district. That's one that is the same. All the labels that are that one gold type color are identical to the current district. And that Norwich didn't want to be divided, and they're not in this case. So. If there are no questions, I'll move on to the northern part of the state.
Okay, sure.
So, you can see the northernmost part is where I made some changes relative to my original proposal. I'll start there, but then I'll make a couple comments about some other things was a challenge for me to try to make adjustments based on feedback from towns. But I was able to do some, so I did feel good about that. So up in the northwest, Franklin did not want to be divided, and in the tentative proposal, it was not in my original proposal, but I had split them, I think, from Highgate, and they really wanted to be with Highgate, so I figured out a way to get them with Highgate using this arrangement here. I had already had a split in Swanton, so that's not new. None of the other splits that I have here are new. They're slightly adjusted for these particular districts, but I had already had a split in Swanton and also a portion of St. Albans town in a separate district from the rest of St. Albans town. And then, so that's a 2-member, and then another 2-member next to it. Some of this was just, and this I was happy to, my original proposal, I had cut Ennisburg in 2 pieces, and so this returned that. This is a 2-member district. I tried dividing this all the different contiguous ways to get 2 1-members. But I couldn't make it work with the number, with the deviations, and without splitting anything, which I was prioritizing. And then down to the 3F district, Fairfax, Fletcher, and Fairfield. And then, well, I'll mention Georgia at the same time. So as we know, we heard from quite a few, not only the Georgia BCA, but many residents of Georgia. My original not my actual original proposal, but a prior draft, I actually had taken a small part of Georgia out because I had it as a single member district. But I changed that, put it back, made a 2-member district with part of Fairfax, good part. And then with the remaining part now, I have joined it with Fletcher and Fairfield for a 1-member. And this district is different than what Fairfax requested, although interestingly quite similar. They requested, I believe, a 2-member that would be all of Fairfax, Fletcher, and Fairfield. And then with a little bit of Georgia taken out to help Georgia's deviation that is added to them. And so that's another option for these 4 towns. You kind of have, you have to have at least 1 division somewhere. This one puts it in Fairfax. Fairfax, their feedback suggested having one in Georgia. There's got to be a balance, but I like the fact that it's just the 1 division and not more than 1. Any questions about that?
No.
Okay. Yeah.
At some point, I want you to get to just to review what's going on in the islands, but you can come back to that if you're not.
No, I could do that now. So I didn't change this from the original proposal. I took South Hero, Grand Isle, and the southern half of North Hero. I wanted to use all of North Hero. You get up into, I think it's over 9% deviation. Maybe that'll be acceptable to the legislature if they end up doing a district like that. I tried to keep it lower, and that's why I took just the lower half of North Hero. There's a very strange census block there that kind of snakes up onto the part that I didn't really want, and there was no way to fix that. You can kind of see it up here. That's why that looks very peculiar. So that's what's going on in the southern part of the islands. It's a 1-member district with South Hero, Grand Isle, and part of North Hero. And then the remainder of North Hero, Isle Lamont, and Alburgh are joined with Swanton for a 2-member district. Part of Swanton, excuse me. Any questions, Tom? Is there more?
Thank you.
Okay. And then the other part that I shifted was over here in Orleans. I realized that I could make there was some we heard from Barton and Glover, and who are, I believe, together in a 1-member district in the tentative proposal. And I think we also heard from Westmore, who wanted to be with Barton. There was some overlapping, but not 100%. There was some conflict here to make it all work. But and Irisburg, I think, wanted to be with Coventry. So taking it all together, I decided, I didn't realize that Derby was okay to be its own district, so I made it its own district. And then what had been the rest of that district in my original proposal became another 1-member district, so Barton, Brownington, and Westmore. I just realized I haven't done it, but I could make Newport City its own district, which we just heard from, I think, today. Is that right, Tom? They were pleased with the idea of being a 1-member district. And that would be completely possible to do, just make them a one-member district, and the remainder of what is Orleans 2 would be another one-member district. It's not on this here, but could be.
And that internal line in Troy is the same as it is now.
Yeah. There's currently, I believe, about 430 people from Troy in Orleans 2. It's always hard because the lines suggest like that they're cut in half when population wise, most of it is in the other district, is in Orleans Lamoille. So going back down to Huntington, Bolton, Waterbury, which I definitely tried.
Hang on, before you do that, what does your map do with those unorganized towns that we talked about again yesterday? Ferdinand, Lewis.
Oh, yeah, sorry about that. I think I might have missed the conversation. I know Ferdinand wanted to be with the Gores and Grants. Is that right?
Yes.
Obviously by numbers, it could go either way. It would make it a sort of claw shaped, what would remain. It's in, so I think.
Yeah, I think that's the conclusion
Right.
we sort of came to yesterday, is that it could be done. The shape looks ungainly. But it doesn't affect any of the numbers.
No, and I don't know, and maybe others do, whether you would drive through Ferdinand to get somewhere else. I guess from East Haven you might. I don't know that region well enough to know. But
Well,
not that you couldn't drive through it just because it was in the other district.
I think you have to go through Granby in order to get to East Haven.
Yeah.
But to put Ferdinand in with Lewis and Brighton, I think would be fine. There are roads through Ferdinand that come out on Route 105 and which runs between Bloomfield and Brighton, and a section of it goes right through Ferdinand. And at there's an old railroad crossing. It's no longer active, I think. From there you can go up into Lewis.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that works. I would make that change of putting Ferdinand into the Essex Orleans district.
Yeah, I think if it can be done and it, kind of with everything else, then why not? Yeah.
And then Route 102 runs right up from Lunenburg, Guildhall, Maidstone, Brunswick, Bloomfield. That connects all of those towns. So it may look funny on the map, but it's all on one string.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Okay,
well, we can move back to where you were headed, Jane.
Well, while we're up here, actually, I remembered that Newark also expressed an interest in being with Sutton, Sheffield, and Wheelock, which this district does, which I didn't change this. This was the way I had put it in the original proposal. So I did, let's see, let me go down to Huntington, Bolton, and that district. I certainly wanted to do what I could to make those towns happy. And I can see what was done in the tentative proposal as far as taking a portion of Waterbury and making, 2 one-member districts that way, which certainly could still be done because I didn't change the boundaries or any of these of this here. I was reluctant to do that only because I felt, for 2 reasons. I felt that Huntington and Bolton, even though they did say they liked it, I admit that, or I acknowledge they thought that was better. But Waterbury, of course, doesn't want to be split, and so I'm reluctant to create solutions for some towns that create splits for other towns. So that was kind of one of the reasons I didn't do it. It obviously still could be done, but I didn't do that. I focused a little bit more heavily on the Senate side, making sure to keep all the Mount Mansfield Union towns together. Let's see. A lot of these districts in here are the districts that are the status quo districts. As Rob knows well, a portion of Stowe needed to be removed because of the growth in Stowe. I added it to the currently existing 2-member district of Worcester, Elmore, Woodbury, and Morristown. There are some towns in here, this was a similar situation and Walcott, maybe Hyde Park, that like the new, the tentative proposal, and others that didn't like it as much. And again, I felt that the only way to make changes, say, that some of the towns liked, would require this division of Morristown that you guys have in your proposal that I was unwilling to make. So that was kind of where it came down for me.
Do you want to, can you scroll over into the Chittenden County, Gene, say if there's anything there you want to point out? Maybe.
Sorry, it's not, hopefully you can see it okay. It doesn't blow up so great. It's not the most high quality picture I have here, but this, you can see I did leave Underhill and Jericho the same. I left Richmond the same. I left Shelburne, the 2 districts, Shelburne, St. George the same. These are, the rest of the districts are what I had in my original proposal. I did see that South Burlington wanted to have all their, they wanted an additional 5th seat that was only South Burlington. And Williston also wanted to have its portion that goes beyond a 2-member district with other towns, not that it's connected to via school district. I did try various arrangements. The numbers were it was very difficult to put them. That was not possible to do. I saw in the update that Jeremy and Rob did that they found a solution by joining part of Williston to part of Essex. Do I have that right?
Yes.
Yeah, so I understand there are other options there. I just didn't have the chance to do that, to make any changes there. So it's a possibility, but I didn't have a chance to do that.
And any other changes in that area reflecting Board of Civil Authority responses?
Not so much changes. I felt that I had already at least done a fair bit, although again, it's not always possible to get perfect happiness. But I had kept Westford and Essex together. I did not break it up into smaller one-member districts. They seem to not be happy about that. So I kept the 2-member districts that I had. I basically had 3 2-member districts. The one including Westford with the addition of a small portion of Milton. Some of those, I will add, some of the roads there, probably, not necessarily the entire region that's been added, which is a few hundred people. But there are at least a few roads there that you can only get out through Westford.
Mhm.
So at least that was, at least in some sense, not the worst choice. So that's mine. And if there's anything else I can answer, I'd be happy to, but I'll stop for now.
Do you have any comparative? I'll ask this of both you, Rob, and Jeremy, and you, Jean, about comparing the 2 maps. Is there any metrics that you think are worth sharing in terms of deviation, overall deviation, divisions of towns, or compactness that you think are worth noting?
Well, I'm happy to say something about the document that I sent around.
I think, sure. I don't think we've had anyone's that probably had a chance to look at it.
This is an update, and I was not able to get to everything in part because I haven't had, I've had the numbers for my own plan, but we just got Jeremy and Rob's less than 2 days ago, so I was trying to do as quickly as I could based on the information I had. But I had, prior to the vote we took that adopted their plan as the tentative proposal, I'll share it. Let's see. I had pulled together some information about the criteria, that is the extent to which the plans met, or information about how they met some of the statutory requirements, specifically having to do with deviation, preservation of existing subdivisions, so boundary, town divisions, that type of thing. And that's really just those 2 on this summary. I did that before, and then this is an update. I hope it's, I did my best looking at the information that I had. This page, can people see it?
Yes.
Okay, so so the overall, the largest positive and negative deviations are listed there. Mine actually did go up 0.1% by, I think it was that one adjustment where I took out Castleton. The remaining district, I think, got me to a -7.9. There may be another that I'm forgetting. But the overall, and I noticed yours, Rob and Jeremy, did go down a little bit. Am I right? The overall deviation?
It should have, yeah.
Because I think there was that enormous district in the south that you now have divided up in a different way. I'm not sure. Anyway, the overall percentage deviations are 17.8 for their plan and 15.4 for mine. And then I had looked a little bit also at the distribution of these deviations, how many were kind of on the large end, whether positive or negative, and sort of how many were close to ideal. And it does, and again, it does look like Rob and Jeremy's are better than they had been. I'm not listing what they were before, but as I was doing it, I did notice some improvements, so that there are still about twice the number that are at the far end than mine, but the percentages are closer now together than they had been before, as far as the distribution goes. And then I also looked at town divisions, and there were some changes, although they remained pretty close to what there were some reductions in town divisions, I think, in both of our plans. Remember, there are 10 cities or towns that are too large to be a 2-member district, so would have to be divided no matter what. And these numbers include those 10. So mine has an additional 15 beyond that are divided. And assuming I counted correctly, Jeremy and Rob's have an additional 35. And then this because of the nature of the maps is so different, it's not really just how many towns are divided. It like I noticed, for example, that in, say, when we were having the tour yesterday of Rob and Jeremy's map, they did successfully get rid of the division of Shaftesbury, but then there was a new division in Bennington. So just counting by towns, you kind of miss that. In other words, you miss the number of different pieces of towns that are in the districts if you just look at how many towns are divided and not how many times they've been divided. So that's what I tried to do in this little next portion here. Just add it up again. I tried my best to get this correct. That is the total number of portions of cities or towns that are in a district. And to make sense of these numbers, so in Jeremy's plan, I got 329, in mine, I got 294. To make sense of these numbers, it's important to remember that every town or gore or city has to have at least one, right? So there's a certain minimum number of pieces of towns you're always going to have. And beyond the number of actual entities, cities, towns, gores, grants, there's also the fact that those 10 large cities, there's a certain minimum number of pieces that they need even to have 2-member districts. But if you take those two together, I got 270. And then what's in the boxes here, 59 and 24, is a comparison of sort of the extra divisions that each plan used to give you some sense of the difference. And I just did not have a chance to update a count of the districts that cross county boundaries. I did start to do it, but some of the names in Jeremy and Rob's plan haven't been updated yet. And I didn't have time to do it. So they may have changed. I just don't know what they are now. So that last row is from before any updates were made to either of our plans. Can I answer any questions about these attributes? Either page?
I notice that this doesn't show a comparison of any of the compactness measurements. Did you look at that, or do you have a sense of what that might show?
You're right, and I apologize for not including that. I just didn't get to it. My recollection, looking admittedly somewhat quickly at the reports that were sent around, they were very close to the same, but I don't want to say for sure. That was my recollection, that they were on both the Polsby Popper and the Rourke, or Rock, however you say it. They were in the like 0.65, 0.62, something like that. Unless I'm mistaken. That's my recollection.
Okay.
So they were, I mean, that was my general sense from making a very quick look, that they were roughly the same,
Okay. And Jeremy or Rob, did you eyeball that factor at all yourselves?
The compactness, you mean?
Yeah.
No, I didn't run the test in Maptitude, but I mean, we were trying to, when we're building the districts, especially when we had to go down to the individual census block level, yeah, we were definitely trying to stay aware of the shape of the districts, and there were some places where we smoothed things out so that it would be more compact, but didn't actually run the Polsby Popper, et cetera.
Okay. Well, would anybody else, I think that sets the table possibly for the board to take a vote on its final house map proposal to the General Assembly. We've, I think, witnessed an extraordinary amount of labor and I'm sure bleary eyes from those who've been engaged in the mapping work. And I think we're all grateful for the diligence and persistence that went into that. And we have two maps that have been produced to a fairly, I think, strong levels of completion. But taking two different approaches to things, which is certainly no surprise. Is there? But before I bring it to a vote, is there anyone on the board who would like to say anything? You'll have a chance to say something after we vote, but I just give you that opportunity now, if you'd like to take advantage of it.
Well, I think we have to acknowledge that there are rough spots in both maps. And both of the maps, if you take them as a starting point for legislative consideration, are going to need some additional work. I don't find that troublesome. But on the whole, I don't think it's anybody's surprise. I lean toward the single member district proposal that Jeremy and Rob prepared.
Anyone else? Mary, Ed? Okay. Well, there's more than one way to take a vote on this. I think my inclination is to go with would be to entertain a motion to that would propose to adopt as the board's final proposal for the House district map, the single member only district map, because that had the previously received a majority vote in the committee. And is there someone who would like to make that motion?
I'll make that motion.
Okay, is there a second to the motion?
Yes,
Okay, that motion has been made and seconded to adopt as the final proposal of the board for the House districts, the single member district map as presented, I guess, yesterday to the board. Will you debate it? Is there anyone who wishes to speak to the motion? Anyone want to make a complicated parliamentary procedure inquiry? Okay, then I'll take, we'll do a, if we could do a show of hands, why don't I just do a roll call on that vote? Mr. Adrian,
Yes.
Ms. Albert,
No.
Ms. Houghton.
No.
Mr. Hanson,
Yes.
Mr. Koch,
yes,
Mr. Little votes no, and Mr. Roper.
Yes.
I don't think I missed anybody. Okay. There's a whole lot of other stuff we could be discussing about what happens next with this. But some of that can be done offline, I think. But I think it's important to say now, Jeremy and Rob, whatever you need to do to get your map through the final map perfection processes with the assistance of the Legislative Council IT staff, we should jump on that pronto if it hasn't already been started, so that map can come as easy, relatively speaking, easy to reproduce, print, copy, post, and share as possible. So let's get going on that. What I think can be done, some of which can be done offline, is the how to assign drafting chores for the written portion of that map, map in roughly the format that we've been using in the past, and which follows what I've suggested in a draft that went out a few days ago.
question, is it necessary to go back through 40 years of history on these districts and what was done at each cycle?
It depends, I guess, what you mean by necessary. I don't think most of the old stuff doesn't change. So we would be supplementing that. We'll see. That may not be the single most important part of the report, Tom, but it is one way people use to evaluate it and understand it. And in many cases, people have told me they never knew that their town had been associated for 20 years with a set of other towns, and now they think they understand something better than they had. It's my expectation that with respect to the House report, that there likely will be we would conventionally call a minority report or something along those lines that will at the very least explain the opposition of the folks who voted against it. And I've already put I think a place saver in the draft for that. I put in a few other place savers, as I mentioned yesterday. Do you have the energy to talk about the Senate?
Well, now that we have a house map that's heading out the door, it'll be maybe not straightforward, but it should be not terribly hard to then draw a Senate map just based on the House map. And I think if we can avoid having House districts that cross Senate districts as much as possible, we can just take five House districts and collect them into Senate districts. If it makes more sense to try to do something different. I mean, so like the map that I proposed was not taking into account anything with House districts. So I don't know if folks have any other thoughts one way or the other.
Well, I think it makes a lot of sense to try to take 5 House districts and put them together, make them a Senate district. And I think it'll be interesting to see what that looks like after the effort is made. I have looked at Jeannie's proposal that she did several weeks ago, and basically I don't think that's bad. It does have 3 member districts that I would like to break down into 2 and 1, and I can actually send you, Jean, a proposal for you to look at, see if that's acceptable to you.
Sure, you can send that. That'd be fine.
Jean, did you sent something around on your map? Did you not?
You mean my Senate map?
Yes.
I have been playing around with it. I don't know that I've sent any update
Okay.
to the, not.
Is that something that you plan to do some more finishing work on and circulate for review and comment?
Sure, and I'm curious to hear what Tom Koch has, or what he's thinking about, and I can see what that looks like if he wants to send that to me. I did one change I made myself because, again, it was in response to, I believe, maybe more than one person, but I'm thinking specifically of the public comment we received from Mr. Parby, I think his name was, from Washington. He also, I think it was him. Anyway, it was about one of my districts, which was stretched across much of Orange County and then up into the middle and almost up to the northern part of Caledonia. And I split that actually into two Senate districts because it was more for geographic reasons, thinking about what it means to cover such a large range. So I was able to come up with a way to do that. So that's one change since I, we talked about it with the group. I'm still kind of making adjustments or thinking about groupings in the Chittenden County area. So yes, I will, we don't have much more time, so I'll come up with something and send it around.
What is your, what are your, what's your advice about when we will be able to look at maybe two final proposals for a Senate plan, and when we therefore would be ready to take a vote?
Well, I think the plan Jeremy put together looks good. I think that putting together a plan that is based on the House districts, 5 House districts per Senate district with 30 single-member Senate districts, shouldn't be too hard to put together now that we've got the House map. And those are 2 good options, and then Jeannie can put her map together, and that'll be 3 good options for a decision. I don't think it'll take too long. On our end, Jeannie, I don't want to put words in your mouth about how long it'll take you for a Senate map.
Well, I mean, I'm away starting tomorrow, and so I don't see being able to really do anything in terms of getting together until early next week in any case, but I could try to get something available for people's review by the weekend, say, or maybe earlier, but in any case, just after Thanksgiving, and then we could maybe be prepared to review and vote early next week, which is our deadline.
That sounds good to me.
Yeah, I would, we could go back to our 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Time window for Monday, the 29th. That would work for me. I can't go much past 11 o'clock Monday morning because of gotta be taking someone to a series of doctor's appointments.
And I can't make it that morning because my wife has laser surgery on her eye and I have to take her to Burlington. And it'll take up, I'll probably go into early afternoon by the time we get back. I don't know what my availability will be.
I suppose the other option for me would be late afternoon, so like 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. But maybe we could do a little of both to see how it goes in the morning and see what kind of consensus we're at. If we're at a 3-3 vote, Tom, we could somehow work out a way to get you in on that later in the day.
That would work, I think. I could make it work, and I thank you.
Just send a stand-in for yourself, Tom. She won't be able to tell the difference.
Yeah.
Okay. I had a little cheat sheet here of what I'm going to do, just in anticipation of at the very least not having a full set of written reports to go out on Monday or Tuesday, is draft a letter from the board to the Secretary of the Senate and to the Clerk of the House that summarizes where we are, where we expect to be by the statutory deadline, what we think we will be filing then, and what we may need some additional time so that we are showing our due respect to those authorities I have been keeping the legislative leadership generally apprised of our progress. So I don't think that will come as a surprise or a too much of a disappointment. But I think it would be appropriate to do that. And if this is a question both to Rob and Jeremy and to the Secretary of State's folks, do you have an idea of, and understanding this is a week where it's a short week for people, what might be a reasonable expectations for completing that final work on the single member district map?
I can finish some of the polishing and I mentioned that I had to do some district renaming. I've essentially not been at my computer since our meeting yesterday, so I will have that done this afternoon to this evening, and then I can hand that off to folks in the Secretary of State's office.
That sounds good. Thank you, Jeremy. And then we can take it from there. Mia can get it to legislative IT to do the final PDF. And I guess I would just ask that the board members think about what you want on the LAB website. I think we could do some cleaning up there and reorganizing, and what we want to put out there. I would think including Rob's district by district explanation should probably go out onto the resources page.
Yeah, it's not finished yet. It needs to be cleaned up. There's some stuff that needs to be added. And I think Tom was correct about, I had an error in there regarding a town down south that I need to correct. And if anybody can read through that and catch anything else like that, where I've got a typo that has the wrong numbers in it or misspelled a town name or something like that, please let me know.
There was a misspelled town name, and I can't remember what it was.
Okay, is there anything else anyone would like to take up at this time?
Well, I just note what may be a first. A little while ago, you put up for discussion a significant motion. You asked 6 other political animals if they had anything to say, and nobody said a thing.
I think that may reflect as much the state of exhaustion that some if not all of us are in, Tom, but and I think we've made our views clear right along. So I think it's worth noting, and I'll just say as we close out the meeting that I think everyone appreciates all of the work that everyone has been doing, and it's exhausting work. It's tiring work to keep up with, even if you're not the person doing the work. And there's really nothing quite like this in my experience. So thank you for your persistence and diligence and your stick-to-itiveness. Please be in touch with me with any questions or concerns over the next few days. I'll be setting up an agenda and continuing my drafting efforts. And those working on the maps, please do your best to clean them up and finish them up and circulate them. All right. Thank you all. We'll stand in adjournment.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you.
Happy Thanksgiving.